Es ist vielen nicht bewusst, dass es in Israel gerade zu einer gigantischen
Many people are unaware of the massive wave of internal refugees that has recently occurred in Israel. Tens of thousands of refugees have fled to Eilat, Israel's southernmost city, which offers a direct view of Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia.
Und obwohl die Bevölkerungsanzahl
Although Eilat has a population of only about 50,000, it has managed to accommodate nearly as many refugees as it has residents.
Menschen aufzunehmen, wie sie selbst Einwohner hat.
The many hotels that usually cater to tourists are now housing families from the villages and towns surrounding Gaza.
Und obwohl die Stadt jetzt eigentlich vor Einwohnern,
Despite the influx of people, the beaches are empty and the promenades are sparsely populated.
nur minimal bevölkert.
The refugees that are now living in Eilat have been displaced from their homes and are fighting for their survival. Many have lost family members, and everyone knows someone who has either been murdered or kidnapped by Hamas terrorists and taken to Gaza.
Nur wenige Autominuten von Eilat entfernt befindet sich
There is a kibbutz just a few minutes' drive from Eilat, where I visited. Refugee families are also being accommodated there.
ein Kibbutz ist eine Art
A kibbutz is a type of communal living arrangement, often located near Israel's borders. These villages have a strong sense of community, where inhabitants strive to live together rather than merely alongside each other.
Gemeinschaft. Das heißt, man probiert füreinander da zu sein.
Residents of kibbutzim, known as kibbutzniks, typically earn their livelihood through agriculture, such as growing dates.
Natürlich ist
Tourism is also a significant source of income in these often picturesque locations.
und in diesen Gemeinschaften versucht man, den Wert darauf zu legen,
In kibbutzim, there is a strong emphasis on sharing resources and living as equally as possible, often with a somewhat socialist philosophy.
sozialistisch angehauchten Sinne. Was bedeutet das?
Social harmony usually prevails in these small communities where ideally residents earn the same salary regardless of their job.
Am Schluss dasselbe Gehalt bekommen. Und auch in den Freizeiten
There is a sense of cohesion in a kibbutz that is rarely found elsewhere.
ein Zusammenhalt besteht, den man anderswo nicht wirklich findet.
And at a time when loneliness is increasing and becoming a growing problem, kibbutzim are in high demand.
Da werden die Kibbutzim wieder für viele Israeli interessant. Natürlich ist die Situation jetzt im
However, the situation in this kibbutz in southern Israel is far from normal at the moment.
Jahr einerseits
On the one hand, the villagers are trying to maintain their usual routines, but on the other hand, the population of these small communities has nearly doubled.
hat sich auf einmal die Einwohnerzahl praktisch verdoppelt.
This sudden influx has led to practical challenges, such as how to manage laundry.
Am Anfang, so wurde mir erzählt, haben wirklich sich die Menschen
Initially, I was told people organized their own laundry at home. Eventually, the residents pooled their money to buy washing machines, which they stacked in an empty warehouse.
Maschinen gekauft, die dann in einem leeren Lagerraum übereinander gestapelt wurden.
This humble laundry room has become a symbol of the situation people now find themselves in.
Man sieht,
Refugee families continuously arrive to do their laundry, but they must coordinate and adhere to scheduled time slots. They often bring large bags of laundry to avoid the tiring task of washing clothes every day. Normally, people would do their laundry at home, perhaps in a bathroom or wherever their washing machines are set up.
Zimmer oder wo auch immer man seine Waschmaschine stehen hat. Und obwohl ein Kibbutz
And even though this kibbutz in Israel's deep south appears peaceful, it is clear that normal life has come to a halt in many ways.
mit der Natur im Einklang zu leben,
The beautiful gardens and the close connection with nature, which are characteristic of kibbutzim, cannot hide this fact. People sit in front of small cabins, converting their gardens into makeshift home offices.
ebenso wie Menschen,
You also see people who have bought small hot plates and are now cooking in their gardens, as many of the small apartments were originally intended for tourists, not refugees. So here they are, standing in the middle of their gardens, cooking lunch for their families.
So wie ich jetzt hier sitze, sitzen die Familien aus dem Kibbutz hier unten.
I sit in the place where usually the kibbutz families gather when the rocket alarm sounds. However, in Israel's deep south, the rockets don't come from Gaza, but from distant Yemen, located behind Saudi Arabia. Yemen, now an Islamic country engulfed in its own war, has joined the Iranian-led war against the Jewish state, periodically firing at Israel's southernmost city. This bunker, which dates back to the 1960s, was once thought to be obsolete, but now families huddle here when danger looms overhead. In recent years, this room was only used for storage, holding children's toys for instance. But now it serves once again as a bunker, stocked with fresh water and basic supplies.
Und dann sitzen die Familien hier, die Kinder.
Families, including the children, wait here, hoping that the thick walls and massive steel doors will protect them.
Ich sitze da eben drin, da geht auf einmal so ein Alarm an.
I was sitting peacefully in front of my apartment when the alarm went off. Many people currently living in the kibbutz have fled from the terror and violence inflicted by Hamas and were evacuated here. And you can see how nervously the children react to the alarm. Some cry and say they want to go home because they're so scared. They fear a rocket attack or, even worse, an incursion by armed terrorists. The anxiety among people, especially the children, is palpable.
Speziell die Kinder. Letztlich hat sich dann herausgestellt, dass es nur ein...
In the end, the alarm turned out to be a false fire alarm, triggered by a faulty detector. But the tension is evident when you see how many people immediately emerge from their apartments. Everyone checks their phones, fearing that something might have happened. Whether rockets or gunmen infiltrating the kibbutz, attempting to repeat the massacre of October 7th.
Die wie am 7. Oktober versuchen zu morden. Den Menschen...
You can sense the trauma that people experienced on October 7th.
Und dann war auf einmal der erste Tag von
Then, suddenly, it was the first day of Hanukkah, the Jewish holiday commemorating the rededication of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Despite the recent political events, the kibbutz did not let the tradition slip. In fact, this hope-filled tradition was perhaps even more important this year, given the terrible events.
Die Jugendlichen des Kibbutz sind losgezogen.
The teenagers of the kibbutz set off on foot, walking through the desert for nearly an hour and a half before then climbing a mountain.
Und da oben haben sie dann einer Tradition Rechnung getragen.
At the mountain summit, they honored a long-standing kibbutz tradition.
Von dem Berg hat man dann eine ganz tolle Aussicht, natürlich auf den Ort.
From this mountain, there is a stunning view of the town of Eilat and the Red Sea, as well as Jordan, Egypt, and even Saudi Arabia.
In 8 sehr rustikal aussehende.
The young people then stuffed old clothes into 8 rustic-looking barrels
Und die haben sie dann noch
and then poured oil over them.
Mit einer Fackel sind sie dann über den ganzen Berg gelaufen, gekraxelt und haben ein Fass nach dem anderen entzündet. In der Tradition der Hanukkah.
In the tradition of the Hanukkah, a type of candelabrum, where one candle is lit after another, they then lit each barrel on fire with a torch.
Also den ganzen Berg in einen riesigen Kerzen.
The teenagers turned the mountain into a giant candelabrum, hoping the lights would be visible from the valley below.
Auf dem Rückweg gab es dann Soufganiot.
On their way back, the teenagers enjoyed soufganiot, a type of donut traditionally eaten during Hanukkah, a small reward as they approached the valley and the kibbutz again.
Als kleine Belohnung, als sie sich wieder dem Tag.
However, despite the peaceful afternoon, the horrors of October 7th kept resurfacing in conversations. The bloody pogrom cast its shadow over everything, as many of the young people had friends, acquaintances, and even family members in the kibbutzim that were so brutally attacked by Hamas and Palestinian civilians.
Zu den anderen Kibbutzim, zu den Bewohnern da, von denen ja so viele ermordet oder eben entführt wurden.
Obwohl die Situation für die vielen
Although the situation for the tens of thousands of internally displaced people in southern Israel is particularly tense because they don't know what the future holds, there is a strong sense of solidarity.
herrscht ein großer Zusammenhalt. Die Menschen stehen zusammen.
People are standing together, helping one another, and volunteering. Some are washing the clothes of refugee families, and others are cooking for those who haven't yet managed to set up a small kitchenette.
Es nicht geschafft haben bisher, sich eine kleine Kochnische zu besorgen, zusammenzustellen.
The situation in Israel's deep south may be tense, but it is much more optimistic than in many other regions of the Jewish state.
Als in manch anderer Region in Israel.